That's the one thing about our audience. They always want a new guy to break through the glass ceiling.
Literally, you're a little illiterate.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the jabroni beating, pie eating, trailblazing, eyebrow raising. Talking is done. You're out of your class. No sleep till Brooklyn. The Rock whoops your ass. Woo!
I wish you and King would quit talking.
Hello and welcome to Around the Ring. I am one of your hosts, Steve, and with me is Justin. How's it going today, Justin?
It's going pretty good.
Great. So we are here recording our episode to talk about the pay-per-view from Sunday, which was AEW's All Out. Man, what a weekend of wrestling. Holy cow. Holy cow. It was just so, man, it was just so amazing. Like, well, let's back up a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So we knew this was coming, and we had a few predictions that we talked about on last week's show. I'll have to go back and listen to that show again to see if any of our predictions came true, because I don't remember what our predictions were. But so the story goes, I had mentioned last week that I was going to try to go, and it didn't go through. Some problems ensued. But then later in the week, the opportunity presented itself again, and I did get a ticket to All Out in Chicago. So I went up to Chicago, flew up to Chicago. The plane tickets, of course, were astronomical because I was buying them like 3 days prior to the flight. But just to let everybody know, it was worth it. It was definitely worth it. I actually had realized while I was sitting there, I had never attended a live pay-per-view before. So All Out 2021 was the first pay-per-view I've ever attended. Have
you done any other television tapings?
Yeah, I've been to Dynamite, and I guess I've been to a lot of wrestling events, just never pay-per-views. And I was looking, I'm thinking back to all the events that I've attended. And I'm like, yeah, I've never been to a pay-per-view.
I've never been to a pay-per-view either. I've never been to a TV taping either. I have been to independent shows that were filmed and broadcast live, but they weren't, I guess technically their pay-per-view, but it was also their only show. They didn't have weekly television.
Right.
I've been to like an NXT house show too, but like that's pretty much the extent of it.
Yeah, I've never been to an NXT house show either, but my gosh, this was what a first experience to have. So today we're doing things a little bit different than what our normal format is going to be. Like our normal format is, like Floyd said last week with us, we're doing it almost kind of like a Sports Center format where we just talk about highlights, which is fun. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But with this particular event, and I think going forward with pay-per-views, we're going to do kind of a match-by-match recap, if you will. So why don't we just go ahead and jump right into things. Now, the first match I do want to mention was not actually on the pay-per-view. I attended live, but I actually ended up watching it on TV last night as well, just because I wanted to hear the commentary, because you don't get to hear the commentary at the live events. And also I add, my seat was not the best seat in the house. Let's put it that way. My vantage point of the ring itself was great. In fact, I don't think anywhere in that arena, it was done at the Now Arena, it wasn't actually Schaumburg, Chicago. I think it was, I want to say Hoffman Estate. Yeah, Hoffman Estates. So I don't think there's a bad seat in the house as far as the ring goes. The only problem with my seat is that I couldn't see the entrances until they were like about halfway down the ramp. And then they had a screen, I couldn't see the screen at all. So like if there were vignettes played, I didn't get to see those. But otherwise it was a great seat. So what I'm getting at is, so this first match was at the live event. I guess, like you were saying earlier, it was a just kind of a pre-show match.
It was on the kickoff show, which I think you can get on YouTube. I think that's where they aired it.
So it was only one. The match was it was Best Friends and Jurassic Express versus the Hardy Family Office. So a lot of people, it was a 10-man tag team. And really, I mean, normally you consider, pre-show matches, they're kind of almost like the dark matches. They're just kind of getting people warmed up, and it was they're just kind of there to just get things started. But really, this could have been on the card as a regular event. I mean, it was a good, solid match. A lot of fun to watch. And really, you get Jurassic Express and Best Friends together, with anybody, you're going to have a good, entertaining match.
Yeah, I was very entertained by this match. It's definitely one of those ones they kind of threw it together because Andrade and Pac got bumped off the card due to travel issues.
Right.
So they moved the Battle Royale that was going to be on the pre-show to the main show, which honestly, I would have wanted that on the pre-show or on the main show anyway, thanks to what we got, but we'll say that for later.
Oh, yeah.
But this tag match was really fun and kind of continued the story of the Hardy Family Office. It's a very odd. It seems like it's just a bunch of tag teams who don't have anything to do right now, just hang out with Matt Hardy. Yeah. But we also got the return of the Butcher, which was a nice little comeback there because he'd been out for the injury.
Yeah. So, it was a good, entertaining, like I said, solid match, good opener. We had, I can't remember. It was won via submission, but I can't remember who actually got the submission.
Was it Jungle Boy doing the snare?
That's right.
Snare trap.
So, and also we got a surprise visit from the Blade and the Butcher in this one. Good match. Good way to start the show off. From the live, in attendance vantage point, it really got the crowd warmed up for the rest of the show.
Which is funny because the audience was great the whole show.
They really were, man. There was so oh my gosh. And we'll talk about this later, how some of the things that happened. And I'll just say now, the TV taping in certain instances throughout the show did not do the crowd reaction justice. You could hear that they were really into what happened, which we'll talk about later. But being there at the show, it was 10 times better. It was just so. And then, being there, of course, you're going to feed off that energy. And it's just, I just imagine how the wrestlers feel feeding off that energy and how into it they get just because the crowd's into it. And really, AEW has some great audiences.
Mm-hmm. They have a really, really strong fan base. They have an audience that is willing to accept almost anything they throw at them.
Yeah. Great fan base. Base. So next show, our next match that we got was for the AEW TNT Championship. Eddie Kingston challenging the Redeemer Miro. So this match actually didn't turn out the way I expected, to be honest. Because leading up to the match, Eddie had a lot of promos where he was talking about taking out his neck, focusing on his neck. And I didn't really see that as much as I thought I would.
No, not really. Not in that match. I guess there could have been some communication with other wrestlers about, we're going to work a body part in one of our matches later. So maybe they were, maybe they decided to go to a different direction. I thought it was a really solid match. I'm a fan of Eddie Kingston and Miro as well. Both guys who Miro's just getting better and better every week. And this is probably his best match since joining AEW. And then Eddie is great. Eddie's he's one of those guys that just has the audience in the palm of his hand. And like his work rate is what it is. I wouldn't call him the best wrestler in the world. He's very good, but he has his style for sure.
Yes. He's a good worker. And I would totally agree that this is one of Miro's better matches. Really, everything he's doing in AEW, at least in my opinion, is so much better than what he was doing in that other promotion. Some of the storylines they had him in were just god awful.
There was that one period where the audience was really into him. It was like during the Rusev Day era. Like that stuff was really over.
Yeah.
Fans were really behind him. They wanted a strong push, but Vince McMahon doesn't like organic pushes. So, he cut that as short as he could.
Yeah. And then later the storylines just got asinine. I'm really glad that he's not in that company anymore and he's over in AEW because they're doing a much better job of storytelling with him. But I agree. This was a good, solid match. Good opener to the main show. And of course, he retained the title, which I want to talk about the title for a second. Come January, when they move to TBS, what are they going to change are they going to call it the TBS title or are they going to completely change it in case this happens again?
I don't know. I guess there's still if it's, Dynamite and TNT are still, a good connection there. So they may wind up keeping the name, but also it does have a little bit of like the TNT logo. I mean, like it's got the blocky font. So I don't know what it'd be strange to change that into the TBS title. Yeah,
it would. I think if what they should probably do is just change the name of it to something completely non-station related.
Yeah.
Call it the US title or I don't know.
You could do TV title if you want to keep with the old school tradition.
Yeah, that would make a lot more sense. Just call it TV title. But yeah, another good solid match. Which brings us to the next match, which it was a good match. In comparison to the rest of the show, it probably wasn't one of the better matches. And I was expecting a little bit more from this match, but we got what we got. And that, of course, was Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Kojima. He comes out and he's trying to get a handshake, and then Moxley just kind of gives him the finger. And the match, go ahead.
It's funny because Moxley kind of works heel sometimes. He definitely, I guess he does that Stone Cold thing where he doesn't act like a good guy in his matches, but he's definitely the one that people are cheering. But in these matches with the Japanese wrestlers, like the one he did with Yuji Nagata, and this one, he definitely plays heel more than a usual Moxley match.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good match. I was expecting a little bit more. I don't know. It just seems like I was expecting a little bit more out of the match. And you and I have talked about this offline, just kind of the idea of Kajimi, just kind of, he's been around for a long time, and he's not going to have a high flying, super moving match, which, I mean, granted, Moxley isn't going to do a whole lot of that stuff either. It just seems like it could have been more action packed, and it wasn't.
This was kind of the pace I expected. I have seen a lot of Kojima's matches in New Japan over the last few years, and I very much I'm a fan of his work for sure. But I'm also I'm aware that he is in his 50s, and he's been wrestling since the 90s. So like his work rate isn't quite what it used to be. But at the same time, it is kind of where he's been as far as his matches in New Japan too. So it's kind of what I expected match rate wise. And he's not really known for like really hardcore matches either, which Moxley kind of has that gear he'll get into. But I think this match was worth it mostly for the post-match angle.
Oh yeah. Of course, Moxley pinned Kojima, and then shortly after, we get a surprise visit from Minoru Suzuki. So that was pretty amazing. I want to say that when I rewatched it on the pay-per-view, was when I actually got to see it, because here's what happened during that match. Okay. Moxley pins Kojima, and everybody's standing up cheering, and immediately I dart out because I'm hearing from people around me that the merch tables have thinned out. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in, jump in real quick, see if I can get what I need, get out, and hopefully be back before the next match. So I get in there, and I get through the merch table pretty quickly. There was only like 3 people ahead of me. Unfortunately, though, when I did get back into the arena, Moxley was already laid out, and there's Suzuki standing over it. I'm like, dang it! I missed it. So I got to see it last night, and I'm like, man, I wish I would have been inside for that. I wish I would have waited.
Yeah, because I would have imagined that the crowd pop, especially when they get to the Kaze ni Nare part where the audience sings along with the theme song, I would love to have heard that.
Well, I could hear the crowd from the merch table, because the merch table was actually just right outside the door of where I was sitting. So I heard them, and I'm like, oh man, what just happened?
I love Minoru Suzuki. He's one of the most intense and hard-hitting wrestlers in New Japan. He's also another one who's been wrestling for a really long time. But his matches are very stiff, and I knew he had that tour of the U.S., like basically wrestling in all sorts of independent promotions, which, by the way, he will be in my local independent promotion in October, so I'm definitely going to try and go see him there.
Cool. Very cool.
Actually, I believe Lance Archer is on that show as well, which is pretty cool.
That'll be fun.
So I'm very much looking forward to Moxley versus Suzuki on Dynamite this week, because I think it's going to be really
that's
good.
tomorrow. That's tomorrow, and we will probably be talking about that next episode. Yep. Dynamite. We've got a pretty good. I mean, so far we've got, besides Moxley and Suzuki, we've got Jamie Hayter is going to fight Ruby Soho, and then we've got Malachi Black versus Dustin Rhodes. That's all I know that's been confirmed. So, but that'll be good. Oh, another thing. I forgot to mention about the Moxley fight is outside of AEW, he actually just won the GCW championship.
He won it from Matt Cardona in
right.
So it's funny. Cardona did not hold the title very long.
No.
I really enjoyed, like, I personally don't watch GCW. I'm just not a big fan of that style of wrestling typically, but I was enjoying all the things that he was doing to anger the typical GCW crowd. Like, he changed the championship to a spinner belt and called it the Universal Championship. And he got very sports entertainment-y with it.
Yeah.
And I watched the surprise of where Moxley came out and dressed as in a robe. I'm not sure who that's associated with, but him doing his finishing move on Cardona and winning the GCW title back, and then challenging Nick Gage.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what that. I've never actually watched that promotion. I may have to check out a match or two and see what it's like.
If you're a fan of hardcore wrestling and death matches, it's worth checking out. They do other things as well too, but that's
probably not my thing then.
They do have some high flying, like, or technical based matches too, but traditionally they're known for their more like ECW style match.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So our next match was another championship title match, and this was for the AEW Women's Championship. Of course, we're talking about Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, versus Chris Statlander. This was one of the matches that I was looking forward to seeing. Not that I wasn't looking forward to any of the others, but looking forward to seeing, because I have slowly, throughout her career in AEW, have become quite a fan of Chris Statlander. So I was looking forward to seeing her and seeing how this match would turn out. And it didn't disappoint.
Yeah, it was definitely a really, really fun match. I didn't really expect Chris Statlander to win this match.
Neither did I.
But she did get in quite a few really good offensive maneuvers in there, like her Area 451 splash, which though she missed it. But she has a very, I think she's still fairly new to wrestling, but she has an arsenal of moves that it's just like, oh yeah, you know what you're doing. There's still some spots where she's not as crisp, I guess, but the fundamentals are there and the moveset is there and the look.
Yeah,
I would like more character from her.
Yeah. Found it a little interesting that she's teaming up more or less with the Best Friends, but I mean, where else would she go? But yeah, she's got some very interesting moves that she pulls out from time to time. She countered the lockjaw a couple of times, but unfortunately for her, in the end, it was the lockjaw that got her, and she submitted. But this by no way would be what I refer to as a ho-hum match. This was a good match, it was really entertaining, good. And got the job done. It got the crowd on their feet, and people were cheering, and it was definitely. I mean, both of those girls were over, and
sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say when Britt Baker set up for the Pittsburgh Sunrise, as they're calling it now.
Yeah,
like she did the pose. I was like, oh, there's our Adam Cole references, which will pay off later in the show.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure that I said this last week, or maybe not, or maybe it was in an offline conversation. But I've said it a few times in the last few months. The women's division in AEW has grown by leaps and bounds in the last year. Like when when AEW first started out, and you know, I started watching AEW when it first started. I really the women's division was the weak link. It is no longer the weak link. They have got a good, strong women's division, and it just got stronger.
Yeah,
because of something we'll talk about in a minute.
We keep teasing it off.
Yeah, but it was a good match, and this was a fine example of the growth of this division, and it's just going to get better because there's a lot of the more newer talent that's coming through, which we'll talk about when we get to the Casino Battle Royale. But yeah, good match. Next match was another tag team title match. This was the cage match, a steel cage match between the defending champions, the Young Bucks, and the Lucha Brothers. And to be honest, how could you not be looking forward to this match? The Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. How could this in any way be a bad match?
Going into this show, I was like, well, it's going to be this match or the Pac and Andrade match to be the one to steal the show. And then when Andrade and Pac got moved to Rampage next week, I was like, well, we know what the best match of the night is going to be.
Yeah. So I will agree with you halfway on that one. Wrestling wise, like pure just wrestling, yes, highlight of the night as far as the matches go. Another match kind of stole it for me, and it's kind of an obvious one. But we'll talk about it when we get to it. But yes, as far as pure wrestling goes, this was the best match of the night. Lucha Brothers right now are, I mean, even before All Out hit, certainly my favorite tag team of any promotion. And this was just, just an amazing match. It was just what you would expect from these two teams. And, a couple of things that the Young Bucks did were a little nasty, but it was all legal. And then the ending that we got with Ray getting up on top of the cage, and I was really concerned for his health.
Yeah, because that's a tall cage. Like that cage is really high up there.
I was mentioning this to my wife last night. We were watching it, and I was like, that cage is really high. But I want to tell you one thing. When you're there in person, it looks a lot higher than it does on TV.
Yeah, it looks even bigger.
It looks even bigger. And so when he got on top of that I was like, oh no, Ray, don't do that. Don't do that. You're gonna hurt yourself.
Well, I was nervous for him when he did that thing where he ran across the top of the rail from the chain to the chain. I was like, oh my gosh, don't fall. This could go so badly.
But there were so many cool moments in this. When he had the he pulled out the shoe, and it was just like, oh man, things are going to get ugly. And then of course when Penta dove in front of Phoenix to protect his brother from the thumbtacks and took the kick himself. This was a bloody match too. He had
got busted open. I'm assuming on being thrown into the cage, because it was before he even had the shoe with the tacks on it.
That's right.
That he was already a bloody mess, and I was kind of concerned for him throughout the match because, especially at the end, he kept touching a cut on his head that was really bad. So I'm hoping he didn't wind up needing stitches or anything. But
now it may have been. I wonder if it was when the Young Bucks threw him and he kind of got stuck between the cage
Yeah.
And the apron. I think his head got kicked into the steel. That may have been when he started to bleed.
Yeah, they did do that.
But yeah, there was a lot of blood. So much, in fact, that they didn't show this on the pay-per-view itself. But they had to change the mat.
Yeah,
because
I assumed they did, because at one point I was like, well, that mat is way cleaner than it was earlier.
Yes,
so.
yeah. They changed the mat, and it was. But yeah, it was a bloody match, and then of course, Phoenix hit. Oh gosh, what moved it? I think he hit I think it was a tandem driver. But anyway, so the Lucha Brothers took the title away from the Young Bucks via pinfall, and they are now our AEW Tag Team Champions, which I believe is actually well deserved.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't expect it. Yeah, it was a surprise, but it was a happy surprise.
Right. It's one of those ones where it's like the match was too good to not let people go home happy after it.
Yeah.
I imagine, I thought that the Bucks would retain to continue the Elite having the gold storyline, but I guess that means we're dwindling down on that storyline because Kenny has since lost the Impact title, so he's not quite the belt collector right now anymore. But
yeah, and considering what we saw at the end of the storyline of them not retaining the title makes a little less sense. But they lost it. It was a good match. I mean, there was so many times that you thought that match was over and they were going to retain it. So many near falls in this match. Just a great match. Like we both said, this is. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, as far as wrestling goes, it was the match of the night. I do want to mention one thing. This is kind of nitpicky, but I'm not like super happy with what they're doing with Cutler right now. He just seems like a goofball, and I don't really like the story they're going with him.
I don't know that story very well. I don't watch Being the Elite, and I feel like a lot of the stuff that they do is tied into that show, which I think is where all the Cutler stuff is happening. But I like the entourage, the having Don Callis in his pink suit call the match on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't crazy. I'm just not crazy excited about the direction that his character is going right now. But we'll see. I'll see what happens when we go further. But yeah, great match. Next one up is the Women's Casino Battle Royal. Another really good, fun, entertaining match, I thought. The rules of that one are a little weird. They got they've got a special deck and everybody draws a card, and what suit you are says when you're coming out. And then let's see, who was the first one out?
Looks like Sky Blue was the first one eliminated. She was the Chicago local favorite.
Yeah. It was her and Bunny.
Abaddon. Right. You're talking about the first group.
Yeah, the first group that came out. It was Hikaru Shida, Sky Blue, Emi Sakura, the Bunny, and Abaddon. And then Sky Blue and Abaddon were almost one right after the other, eliminated right before the next group hit. And then of course Anna Jay comes out and directly like just immediately goes after the bunny. And then the rest of that group was Kiera Hogan, Diamante, Nyla Rose, and what's her name? Kyla King. Kyla King. I can't remember her name.
Was they second group? Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of eliminations made by Nyla at this point.
Yeah.
At this point, I was really nothing against Nyla Rose, great worker, but I didn't want to see her win this one.
No, but I didn't think she would, though, because she had just had that program with Britt Baker, so it didn't feel right to go back into that story again.
Yeah. But she was definitely eliminating a lot of people, and it was like, oh my gosh. And then, of course, after that, the Hearts came out, and that was, it was Thunder Rosa, Penelope Ford, Riho, who I actually didn't expect to see, but interesting. Jamie Hayter, and then Big Swole.
Yeah.
So this group. Go ahead.
I was surprised that Riho got eliminated as fast as she did.
So did I. Yeah.
She had a good crowd reaction. People were excited to see her again, and her elimination almost looked like a mistake to me. Like she was like out so fast that it was odd. I don't know unless they were just like we gotta speed this match up, because there were a lot of eliminations fairly close together in this match.
Yeah. But then so Thunder Rosa enters and gets a good crowd reaction and does her thing. Immediately goes after Nyla Rose and another really good pop in this group. At least from my standpoint, was from what I could see was Big Swole. A lot of people happy to see her, and that was good. So then, last group would have been the. Let's see, what do we have? We had the. I'm thinking here. Clubs. Spades was last. That was Ty Conti, Red Velvet, Jade Cargill, Rebel, and what is the Russian girl's name?
Layla Hirsch.
Right. Legit Layla. So that was a good group to come out. I gotta say, I'm really starting to grow on Red Velvet. When I first saw her, I was like, okay. But yeah, she's kind of starting to grow on me. I think she's going to be. I think she's got a good future ahead of her.
Yeah, she strikes me as one of the homegrown talents that they're definitely banking on in the future. Because the way she came out and like how I saw her moving in that match compared to everyone else in there, I was like, okay, yeah, she's really good. She's still kind of green too, but like she's got a pretty great future ahead of her. Yeah.
Right. I agree. She's a little green, but what she's doing right now is just it's fun to watch. So, if she's going to keep up, get her the technical side down more and get some more experience under her belt, she's going to have a good career. Same with she's not super new, but Jade Cargill, she's got a lot ahead of her as well.
Yeah, she's got a good look. She's even got some decent mic skills, I think, for the type of character she plays.
Yeah.
But of course, the star attraction of this match was the Joker reveal.
The Joker, and I mean, I could see it even on the pay-per-view as well, but that crowd went nuts when that music hit. That Ruby Soho music hit, and that crowd just went nuts. And that was that was our first big surprise of the second big surprise of the night, if you count Suzuki. But yeah, that was she was the Joker, and then she jumps out there, gets in, and then let's see, who did she went right for? Oh gosh, who did she go for first? I want to say
the final
Jade.
four.
She went after Jade. She went after Jade first.
Oh, okay, yeah,
yeah. So Ruby Soho went right after Jade. But then we get to the final three. It was Ruby, Thunder Rosa, and Nyla Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the fourth? Who was the fourth?
Tay Conti.
Right. Okay. And so, they kind of team up to get Nyla out of the ring. They finally got her out of the ring. And then it kind of gets to basically they're battling on the apron. They're both on the outside. Mm-hmm. Whoever drops, that's the end. And ultimately, Ruby got over on Thunder Rosa. And so because she is the winner of the Battle Royale, she is going to get a match against Britt Baker DMD for the title. So,
I was surprised by that, honestly. I felt like it's a little soon to put Ruby Soho against Britt Baker. But I also guess they also, I don't know. It's tough to figure out where to go unless you're just purely wanting to get to a great match quickly. Yeah. I seeing the two of just Thunder Rosa and Ruby Soho in the ring together, I was just like, I just want to see this as a match, as a one-on-one match.
I agree. I want to see that as a match. I want to see, and it would not surprise me if it's coming soon. I'd also like to see her in a match against Jamie Hayter. Oh yeah, that'd be really good too. Actually, I think I just mentioned that's happening. Isn't that happening tomorrow? Didn't I just say that? I can't even remember what I said 30 seconds after I said it. Dynamite. I'm just trying to Google it. Dynamite. What is tomorrow? Tomorrow's the 8th. Let's find it. I just had that up. Yeah. She's fighting Jamie Hayter. That's where I got that idea. Yeah,
that'd be a good match.
Yeah, I think that's going to be good, and I think it fits fairly well in the storyline with the tag match, upcoming tag match she's going to have. So yeah, Casino Battle Royale with the women. Again, such a strong women's division that I'm really happy to see happen. Mm-hmm. Another good, entertaining, and well-executed match. Mm-hmm. Which brings us to Chris Jericho versus MJF. So if Chris had lost his fight, the stipulation was he would never wrestle in AEW again. To be honest, I thought he was going to lose this match. He did not. He actually defeated MJF with a submission hold. What was it? The Lion Tamer. But that being said, it was not an easy win.
No, that was, I was not really looking forward to this match, mainly due to we had just seen these two go after each other. They did a good job last week on Dynamite to build up the possibility that this could be Jericho's last match, because I was really unsure what was going to happen in this match, because I could have seen it go either way. But I say the second half of this match really built up in a way that I was really happy with it. That made it more enjoyable than their previous match.
Yeah.
For me personally.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think this match was a lot better than the previous one that they had as well. I thought, that last Labor of Jericho match was, to be honest, a little underwhelming. But this one was another really good match of the night. And then that point when you thought, okay, Jericho has lost, and then the other referee, that the referee counted the pinfall. Jericho was done, and then I don't remember who the second referee was, but he came and said, hey, his foot was on the ropes, and the match got restarted, and MJF, of course, was not happy about that, but the match continued, went on, and then we had another point where you thought Jericho was going to submit when he got locked up in that armbar, and then he finally ended up countering. And then got the line tamer in and saved his career. Good. I mean, really, it was a good show from both men's standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, neither one of them is going to Jericho winning wasn't going to hurt MJF. He's been booked strong enough in AEW that he could take a loss here.
Right. Now, I'm gonna be honest here. The thing that surprised me about this match was when the rest of his team came out. The rest of the inner circle comes out. I honestly thought they were going to come out and turn on him.
There was something about how that looked. It looked like they were going to turn on him. I don't know why.
Just looking at it and go, man, they're going to turn on him. And then it didn't happen. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that didn't happen.
I guess that's WWE conditioning. We've been sports entertained into thinking that was what's going to happen next.
Yes. Oh, man. Our next match. Oh, man. This was the one that this was the match that was the reason why I wanted to go see it live so bad. And we're talking about CM Punk versus Darby Allin. CM Punk, back when I watched wrestling a lot more than I do now, CM Punk was always my favorite wrestler. Seeing him come back, we talked about this last week. It was just like, I was really disappointed with myself that I had the opportunity to go to that Rampage show where he showed up. But, I kept saying to myself, he's not going to come back. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And then it did. And I was kicking myself because I didn't go to that show. So it was his first match back. It was going to be in Chicago at All Out. And I got to go to the show. I got to see CM Punk. Because, all that time where I was watching, I've never seen him live until now. Finally got to see him. And this was, oh my gosh, such a match. This was amazing. And it wasn't a way to describe it. It was, as far as wrestling, just pure wrestling goes, it was not a Lucha Brothers versus Young Bucks match. It wasn't that kind of match. This was a good, let's call it, classic professional wrestling match.
Yeah, it was very much a mat-based match.
Yes. And I think that was a little weird I got to imagine that was a little weird for Darby because he's not used to that sort of thing.
I think he has some wrestling background from like high school. So like it's not impossible.
I just mean as a character.
Yeah. As far as his character's presentation, he's been more of a risk taker, high flyer type.
Yes. But yeah, the match was, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the match was amazing. There was a lot of back and forth going. There were times where you weren't sure if Punk was going to pull it off. And, there was that point where he pulled off the go to sleep and then, Darby fell out of the ring. I was like, was that an accident? That kind of looked like an accident. And then, at that point, you think it's going to be a count out. Punk is going to win via count out. And then, that last, jumps in at the 9. It's like, dang, talk about cutting it close. And it was just a fun match to watch. It was entertaining. It was good to see him back in the ring. The crowd was really into it, as expected. And then, of course, it ends with Punk finally got the go to sleep on him, and took him out and pinned him. And a good time was had by all. And then, Sting comes out, shakes Punk's hand, and then he gets over when Darby finally gets up off his feet, and they shake hands, and it was a good ending for a really fun match.
Yeah, I thought Punk looked great. He looked in better shape now than he did when he left the WWE. He wasn't super healthy at that point, thanks to injury and needing time off, but he looked bigger, a lot bigger.
A little bit, yeah.
Like he bulked up.
There were a couple of times where he looked gassed.
Yeah, you could tell.
But I agree. He looked really good for having never been in the ring in 7 years.
Yeah.
In the wrestling room.
Right. It probably helps. His UFC conditioning probably helped keep him in a state where, it would have been worse if he'd literally done no wrestling or UFC during that time period.
Yeah. So he looked good. He looked strong. He looked exhausted a couple of times. But another thing I'm going to ask you, because I need a second opinion on this one. To me, it looked like he was having fun again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean...
some of those final matches back before he left, it just he is not into this. He doesn't want to do this anymore. You almost could see the writing on the wall. He's going to be gone. But here, just complete 180, he looked like he was having fun again.
I'd say that's the overall mood of the entire show. Everyone looks like they're having fun, with the exception of people who are clearly in a bad way in the match on purpose. But
right.
But everybody seemed to come out with smiles on their faces the whole night.
Yeah. And the crowd was happy. I mean, just in general, the crowd was happy going in, so happy going out.
Yeah.
If you could hear some of the conversations that were being had as we're trying to get out the door and then out in the parking lot, you knew these people were happy about this show, and understandably so. So next match was Paul White versus QT Marshall. Pretty short match. Kind of got out of this match what I was expecting, which wasn't a whole lot, to be honest.
Actually, I'd say it was probably better than I expected it to be.
Okay.
I thought Paul did I thought you could tell Paul White he's not in the same shape as he used to be, of course.
Sure.
He had that hip surgery a while back, and you could tell that hip, it still kind of bothers him.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'd say he did more in that match than I expected him to. Like the shoulder tackle, I think, was the most interesting move that he did, where it was like a full like lunging shoulder tackle. And I'm so happy that he did not end the match with that dumb big punch that he used to do. It was the wimpiest looking finish. Like, I get the idea. His hand is as big as his head, sure, but it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, I agree. Now he did do a lot of chopping to the chest.
Yeah.
And he had, there were a few times where he had to fend off QT Marshall's. They're not really his entourage. The rest of his team, I guess, if you want to call the factory a team. Fending those people off, and then not surprisingly, he beats QT Marshall with the pinfall. And really, I would say, okay, it was not a bad match. It's not a bad match. It was a good segue match. If it had been a little bit longer, this would have been good. What is considered by some to be called a bathroom match. But it wasn't long enough to go to the bathroom and get back.
I think it served as a breather. Like, that was the whole point. Like, we just had Darby and Punk, and the crowd was so hot for that match. And the main event was next, and everybody anticipated. Maybe they weren't anticipating the match itself next, but they were anticipating what was going to happen after.
Yes, a breather is a perfect way to describe it. It was definitely a good breather. And then, of course, we get our AEW World Championship title match between the challenger, Christian Cage, and the defending champion, Kenny Omega. Before we get deep into the match itself, I kind of thought, really honestly, this match could have gone either way. Really? He had just lost that Impact champion to Christian, and it seems like they're really not too hard, but really trying to push Christian a little bit. And it would have been really interesting, storyline-wise, to see Kenny lose his belt the same night the Young Bucks lose theirs. So almost like it would have, like, the storyline almost would have been kind of like a changing of the guard in AEW. But by the same token, I would not have been surprised if Kenny won, which of course he did. But this was, Kenny is one of my favorites. And this was a pretty amazing match as well.
Yeah, going into it, I still expected Kenny to retain because I think that the storyline they've been telling is Hangman Adam Page is going to be the one that takes the title off of Kenny. I mean, logically, story-wise, that what they've been building for the last 2 years, that has to be the payoff. So I expected Kenny to retain, especially since Christian just won that match, because I didn't see Kenny losing 2 back-to-back like this. So this was when I wasn't super thrilled to watch this match because, again, we just had them go head-to-head in Rampage. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, this match, I think, is better than that one as well.
Yeah, it was.
Especially, there's something about some of these matches where, like, the second half of the match just really just ratchets up in quality.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely a lot of near falls. Definitely a lot of missed opportunities with finishing moves. Just really good. If this would have been the end of the night, the night and the pay-per-view would have ended very well. Mm-hmm. It still would have been potentially one of the best pay-per-views out there. It was just It was just the whole pay-per-view was just that good, and just a really good last match for the night, with, of course, Omega pinning Christian and retaining the title. But as we all know, or maybe some of us don't know, that's not how it ended. Kenny comes out to kind of throw shade on the crowd a little bit and talk about how nobody can defeat him because they're either not there or dead. And then lights go out. Okay. And so me at the show, I'm thinking, okay, this is when Bryan Danielson's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. And again, like I said, I can't see entrances at this point. But the music hits, and I'm like, well, that's not Bryan Danielson. But the crowd is going nuts. They've seen the screen. The crowd's going nuts, and I'm like, who is it? Who is it? And then he comes just into view. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. That's get Adam Cole. Oh my God. and the crowd is just going ape shit. It's just crazy how over that crowd was. It was so, I saw Adam's debut at NXT when it happened. I think this debut was so much better.
Yeah.
As far as the action goes. And oh my gosh, this was so amazing. And his new entrance music is great. I love it. And then, of course, Cole gets into the ring, and you're like, well, what's going to happen here? And it looks like he's about to go toe-to-toe with the Elite because they're all in the ring because they all came in and Jurassic Express had come in the ring and then just got overpowered by the Young Bucks and who else was in the ring? Luke and Carl in there, and it just looks like he's about to go toe-to-toe with them. And I'm like, well, this would be interesting. And then, of course, that super kick to Jungle Boy hits, and then at that point, you're like, okay, we're getting a reunion here.
Yeah.
And then so he takes the mic and talks about how the Elite's the dominant faction in this business, and oh my gosh, if he's not right, oh my gosh, the Jacksons, Kenny Omega, and Adam Cole together. Oh my God,
seeing them together was just, I was so happy to see them all back together because they had been together in Ring of Honor and New Japan prior to Adam going to NXT. Yeah. And the whole time Adam was in NXT while AEW was starting, I remember thinking, it's just like, Adam should be over there. Like, that's his friends. That's all of his friends.
Yeah. It was a great entrance and a great happening, a great event for the show. And again, if it had ended there, it would have been a great night. It would have been amazing. But wait, there's more. Kenny comes out and does his, goodbye and good night thing, and then the music hits, and automatically you know who's coming out because it's very familiar music. And even not seeing him, of course, at that point, just because of the music, I knew who it was. But again, crowd goes nuts. And in comes Bryan Danielson. Oh, man, just the return of the American Dragon. And then he comes in and they square off and he gets some action out of it. He gets his kicks on was it Matt or Nick?
Matt, maybe?
Yeah, had him in the corner and kicking at him, and then gets the running knee kick on him, and so he definitely gets some action out of it, and then that of course they're kicks all the Elite out of the ring, and they're yelling back and forth at each other, but they get chased off, and then Brian celebrates with Jurassic Express and Christian. Now, that is how it ended on the pay-per-view. That is not how it ended at the event. Brian had a lot to say.
I heard he got on the mic. How long did he talk?
He was on there probably a good 10 minutes.
Wow.
He maybe a little bit longer because the crowd kept telling him to talk longer.
Yeah.
And there was a point where they were telling him to talk forever, and he's like, I will not talk forever, and I will kick anybody that tells me that. But he just goes into this long monologue about why he left WWE and why he came to AEW, and the whole I didn't leave because I hated it like a lot of other people did. Yeah. I loved what I was doing. I loved the people over there. I just wanted, essentially it all came down to he wanted to see how good these people were that are in this promotion.
Yeah,
I think he needs more of a challenge, and that's why he's over here.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of speculation before his contract even ended that he was trying to work out a deal where he would stay with the WWE but get to wrestle in places like Japan and Mexico because he really wants to do things outside of the WWE parameter and wrestle styles of matches that company just doesn't do, and it's their prerogative to not do them that way, but at the same time he wasn't being completely fulfilled in the ring.
That makes a lot of sense, and that makes more sense why he would come to AEW, because he's, there's so many wrestlers there that are kind of just free to do other things. Mm-hmm. And I think he'll be a lot happier over here as well. And like I've said it before, I'll say it again. If this roster on AEW was not packed with amazing talent before, which it was, they have just blown the needle off the scale.
This was probably the greatest ending to any pay-per-view I've ever seen.
Yes.
A double reveal finale.
Yes. On top of getting Ruby Soho and Suzuki.
And Punk's return match. It's funny that Punk is almost an afterthought at this point now.
Yeah, a little bit. It's just, this was, and I've seen it on social media a few times, and I have to agree, this is probably the best pay-per-view that there ever has been.
Yeah, I've seen that a few times as well. And maybe not from a work rate match. I'd say there's probably like some New Japan, like a Wrestle Kingdom show, or like
for sure.
That's probably better as far as like technical aspects of wrestling. But as far as like a purely entertaining and satisfying show, I can't think of very many that like. There's maybe some WrestleManias, some big WrestleManias, some. I don't know. I've seen some really great Ring of Honor shows and PWG shows. Like, this is in the upper echelon of greatest pay-per-views of all time.
If you don't think that this is the best pay-per-view ever, it certainly has to be, if not your top 5, your top 10.
Right. Definitely in contention, for sure.
I have to say I'm a little biased for having, been there and it being my first pay-per-view. but I think it was the best pay-per-view I've ever seen. As far as
it's the best one I can think of right now.
Yes. And it was, I mean, being there in person was just amazing. I can't wait to do it again. I hope that someday I will be able to be ringside at a AEW pay-per-view, because I can just imagine that would up the enjoyment factor. But even in the seats I was in, I had a really good time. I was pumped. I was feeding off the crowd. I was feeding off the matches, and overall, it was just an amazing pay-per-view, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Just the thought of this roster all together, it's just the possibilities are pretty much endless at this point, because I cannot wait to see what Dynamite's going to be like tomorrow night.
Yeah. I cannot say how much I am going to enjoy seeing where AEW goes from here. It's just gonna be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna have so much fun being there for the ride. I guess that's about it. Our next episode will be kind of, I guess you call it a regular episode, if you want to call it that. We will talk about highlights throughout the week. More specifically, probably those highlights will come from either Dynamite or Rampage. We'll have some news for you that we didn't really have tonight. I don't know. We'll probably be able to catch a match from another promotion here or there between now and then.
Yeah, I want to look at the New Japan shows that happened over the last weekend. It was like a Grand Slam event. I think it's one of those baseball stadium shows that they've done. The one they did last year was really fun. So I'll probably check out and see what matches happened on that this week. I want to see if there's something good. I do know that I do know one thing that happened on that show that'll be worth talking about. So I'm going to try and hunt that down and watch it for myself. So we'll have something other than just AEW.
Yeah. Well, I also, if I can, before Sunday, I want to check out this week's episode of another brain fart. The New Japan TV show.
Strong,
right. Strong. I want to catch that one. And I'm probably also going to, at the very least, try to watch Monday's episode of Ring of Honor, just because. But I definitely want to check out the newest episode of Strong. There was a guy that was sitting next to me at the airport while I was waiting to leave Chicago that was actually watching that on his phone. And I was like, oh, what's that? That looks really interesting. I want to see that. And he's like, yeah, this is New Japan. I'm like, I can tell. But yeah. So it's, we'll have a quote unquote normal show next time. Yeah. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks for joining me, Justin. And everybody, thanks for listening to Around the Ring. Enjoy your week.